Namaste. Welcome to the Happy Jack Yoga Podcast. I'm Happy Jack, live from Harvard Innovation Lab in Boston, USA. And I'm here with
Happy Hannah, who is in cold winter wonderland, Canada, Muskoka, Bracebridge, Ontario.
Nice. Yeah, it's cooler here as well compared to, well, first I want to say thank you, Hanna, for holding down the fort these past couple of weeks and, on the podcast as well as, a lot of the Happy Jack Yoga calls. Just got back, I don't know, 36 hours ago from another amazing, incredible trip to Mother India. And my heart is just so full, and I can't wait to share the experience with so many of you. A number of you on the Zoom here are going to be with us in India later this year. And it's yeah, and at the same time, it's good to be back. It's good to be back at school for the final semester. 3 years, 6 semesters total, and this is the last one. But I'm ready to bring it and to enjoy. But right now, we got a podcast to do. So, Hanna, what's on your heart before we get diving in?
Well, I'm happy to welcome you back. Um, I'm so excited to hear all the stories, and I've already, of course, felt your energy, how it has, I think, shifted and changed as a result of your recent trip. It was very unusual in that I never once heard from you, like maybe once, but that's very unusual. So I'm really eager to hear your insights and the gifts that you can bring us through your stories and your insights from India.
Nice. Well, now the pressure is on. But no, it's true. That I guess it wasn't. I guess it was not like super conscious decision, but it's true that for the most part, like really stepped away. And like as you say, Hannah, normally I'd be messaging you every day, and kind of. I don't want to say micromanaging, although sometimes that is the case. You would say micromanaging. Trying to stay engaged.
I might, yeah.
But it was good. As yesterday we caught up for a couple hours, and it was really good to completely disconnect. It was hard for me to step away from the podcast for 2 weeks and to step away from the community, because it's for me it's a lifeline for me. It's something, it's not
Exactly.
just
Let's talk about that for a moment. What is it that you miss about us?
I miss the people. I mean, right now I see Sarah and George and Rita and Pam and Greg. These are my peeps. These are my friends. These are people that I feel like we can engage in really meaningful conversations, whether it's in our spiritual mentorship program or on the Sunday satsang. And so
Something has me believe you have really deep and meaningful conversations also in India.
it's true, definitely. That's definitely true. And so in that sense, it was really good to step away from the technology. And of course, the timing of these calls is late at night in India. And I like to get up early in general, and especially while we're there. But it's almost, honestly, truthfully, it's almost hard to put into words. Like I'm happy, I'm pleased that you noticed something or you sent something, because I don't even know how to describe it. But there's just something about going into a spiritual environment with the intention of purifying, the intention of becoming a better person, the intention of growing and learning, and serving, and actually, creating something, getting clarity on the details for when we bring our group later this year. It's so nourishing, and just it's true. There is amazing people there as well, which I'll talk about some of those individuals, but just having proximity and association with people who are literally dedicating their entire life to the service of others and to making the world a better place. It's
Can I
very,
share what I noticed about you? Like you said in the
yeah.
beginning of this chapter where you're describing your experience, you said like I don't even know how to explain it or how to describe it. And
Mhm.
when when we connected on our meeting yesterday, I could just see your eyes so joyful.
Mm.
And and I thought, like now you are happy Jack, actually happy Jack. Like that's what happy looks like, joyful. And yes, you were tired from jet lag, you've hardly slept many days. That's, of course, not an ideal state, but even still, through that heaviness of jet lag that is intense with such a huge time difference,
Yeah.
your eyes were so joyful. You seem more joyful, more happy.
Mm.
And I know your story to happy is through, you know, the adversities you've gone through and losing your childhood, kind of unconditional sense of joy. And then you
Mm.
refound it with yoga. But now I feel like it's taken a different level of how it presents in your energy, in your reality. I'm sure that your eyes and your body is just an outer expression of your internal experience. So it was
Yeah.
really unexpected. Not that I expected anything. I was just eager to welcome you back, but you were so joyful in your eyes.
Mm. Well, there's a incentive for those listening to this on Spotify to get yourself into Zoom so you can see my eyes now. Um, but it's true, and but actually it's true. I am jet lagged, so I think that smarter insights will come out over the coming days and weeks. Um, But I guess, yeah, I feel I've said it before, so I don't want to be a broken record, but I just feel so incredibly blessed and grateful that everything seems to be aligned for a first time in life, right? Where like my beliefs and my spiritual practice aligns with what I'm studying and aligns with the work that we're doing. And it's often the case for many of us, if not everybody, like earlier in life, kind of finding ourselves and finding our work and fitting pieces together and making time for what we love, but having responsibilities, things that we don't enjoy so much. But I almost feel guilty sometimes because it's so aligned. And yeah, but it's true. To your what you were saying, Hanna, it comes down to the people. And so I guess I should share. So one of the most prominent people who was there with us for the past few weeks in India was His Holiness Radhanath Swami. I know some of you are familiar with him. Some of you, Sarah and George, have read his book. Pam's reading it as well, maybe done now. And just to have so much association with somebody you just there's something like you say you noticed something in my eyes yesterday like you just get within 100 meters of this guy and it's like there you just feel something special something up and it was actually the first day that I arrived to India and so I just like now I was jet lagged right and so I showed up and I was jet lagged the very first person I see is His Holiness Radhanath Swami and but he wasn't right near me. He was over at the Govinda's restaurant and kind of in the buffet area, but there was nobody else around. And so part of me is like, oh, like maybe I should go approach him. But I thought, you know what? I'm jet lagged right now. Because he's in the restaurant, probably any moment now, like a bunch of students will get out of yoga class and, he's going to be surrounded by people. So I said to myself, you know what? I'll catch him another time. Mostly because I'm jet lagged and I want to have a good, impression. So I, continue walking, and about 15 minutes later, I come to this beautiful area called Govardhan Hill. It's this beautiful mountain, mini mountain, and walking around the corner of Govardhan Hill, there he is again. There is His Holiness Radhanath Swami, first of all, I'm thinking, how did he get here so quick? Like I walked directly here, and this is like an old man with a walking stick. Somehow he ended up, on the other side of the campus but then just at that moment, this friend I know, this girl named Tulsi, she was going to approach him, and I thought, okay, cool. I'll let them have their encounter. I'm just going to go on my way again because I want to meet him when I'm not jet lagged. So I keep walking down the path. And then a few minutes later, I find him sitting on the side of the path, like just sitting down on the dirt, holding his walking stick, and he's just looking at this, beautiful architecture, this beautiful temple. And it made me think of for those who have read it, the journey home and just the journey he went on through India. Like here's this monk, this sadhu, this sage sitting on the side of the road, just being. And I'm looking around and there's nobody else around. And I'm like, okay, this is a sign. 3 times in 20 minutes on my first day, I should go and approach him. So I went kind of next to him and said, hey, do you mind if I sit down beside you? And he said, yeah, sure. Have a seat. And I was seated kind of beside him, and we were both looking. And so he didn't recognize me or notice, even though we had met last summer. He didn't really recognize me. And I introduced myself. Hey, I just arrived from Canada. I was here this summer. We did an internship from Harvard Divinity School. And I guess as soon as I said a few things like that, he turned to me and he's like, "Happy Jack," gave me a big hug. Because kind of the dots connected and he knew who I was. And we sat there for about 15 or 20 minutes and had a really nice encounter. And then he says, hey, I'm going to take some people across the road over to the river to see this new project that we're doing. Would you like to come with us? And, again, my jet lagged mind, I'm thinking, oh, he's probably going to take this big group of students to see this project. And I just kind of want to I just want to go brush my teeth and like land and arrive here. So I'm like, oh, I'm gonna get settled in and stuff. But then a few minutes later, he's like, kind of encouraging me. He's like, why don't you come with us? I'm just taking a small group of people. And then I'm like, okay, I've got to do this. This would be silly to pass up this opportunity. So, anyways, we go across the road to this river where they're making this beautiful swimming area, a men's section and a women's section. It's just that's part of the Indian culture to have that separated. And we spent about 2 hours together there, just like sitting on the side of the riverbank. He was explaining his vision and the project, and there was a small group of us, but they were all like um, senior monks or senior practitioners of Bhakti yoga, like himself. So it was like 5 or 6 of us, and he was asking for ideas, and it's like, hey, what do you think? And he I mean, I think, teasing a little bit. He's like, hey, you're from Harvard, like you must have some good ideas. And anyways, I shared a bunch of ideas that came up for me. And he's like, wow, this is really amazing. We'd love to have you involved in this somehow. And it really, anyways, we just had a really nice encounter first day there. And I felt like after that 2 hours, I could have packed up my bag and hopped back on the plane back to Canada and been like, all right, I'm done. I'm complete. I don't need to do anything else. There's just something about being in the presence of somebody who's really dedicated their life to something bigger than themselves. Um, but anyways, that was day one, and there ended up being many encounters and many conversations. And what I'm excited about for our community is that pretty much, I wouldn't say every, but many times during breakfast, lunch, and dinner, he will just come over to the Govinda's restaurant and he'll make a point going around to all the different tables and talking to all the different people and getting to know people. And it's quite special. Um, so that's one thing that I'm very excited to share.
Yeah. What would you say that like something about him is like filling your cup or nourishing or fulfilling?
Yeah, there's just something about his way of being. Like, again, we got some friends on here who have been in the Tony Robbins environment with us, and we all like look up to, I mean, Tony Robbins is an extraordinary individual, in many different ways. Um, and as much as Tony was a really important mentor for 5 years. Like I was with Tony basically at least once a month, every month for 5 years. And it was so influential at the time. And yet, as much as I respect, Tony and many great leaders and people out there, when I think about who I want to be, how I really want to interact with the world, there's something about this monk, Radhanath Swami, that really touches my heart. Just his kindness, his compassion, and yet he still has a immense impact, like huge projects, schools and hospitals and yoga ashrams and yoga centers all around the world. So like still hugely impactful, but doing it while living a very simple life, not needing to have, yeah, just being able to keep it really simple, but still being impactful. So there's just, again, it's almost like hard. It's hard to describe it. I mean, again, I don't want to jump around here, but like near the end of the trip, we had this flower festival, and we're gonna arrange this for our community as well. And I was just like standing there, I didn't tell you this. I was just like bawling my eyes, crying like blissfully. And I'm like, this is crazy. Like, what's going on? I mean, why am I standing here? Just because there was just showering flowers. There was over 1 ton. So that's like over 1,000 kilograms or over 2,000 pounds of flowers. And just the petals, like there was no, how the flower has like the middle piece and then all the petals around. So we had plucked. So these are just the light little flower petals, over 2,000 pounds worth. And to see these uh, falling on us from the ceiling, from up above, and then all of a sudden, like the whole floor is like, up above our ankles and flowers, and we're just like throwing flower petals. And it's like this makes no material sense. Like it seems silly. And probably me describing it right now, it's like, what? This seems weird. But just to see the love and the joy and the, you know, it was so blissful.
Hmm. That sounds really like an ecstatic experience,
Yeah.
like a heightened spiritual experience.
Yeah. I mean, it engaged all the senses, and it's something that I mean, I love it when different people from our culture, people from the Western culture get to experience it, and then they feel moved to share it in their own unique way. I guess while we were there, um, some of you will know, well, I think he might be British. Sarah and George will confirm. Chris Martin from Coldplay. I think he's British, right? I think he's got that accent. So he happened to be there at the ashram, and so he came, and they were like sitting in a circle, and they were chanting the Maha mantra, the Hare Krishna mantra, and then because like the next day he did this big concert in Mumbai with like 50,000 people, and he has this song called Yellow. Some of you listening may be familiar with that song, and I guess he opened that song, or I guess he opened up the evening by saying Hare Krishna, and then just like the whole audience, went crazy because this is in India, and so they connect with that culture. And so, to see people come into this environment. And there's another person I saw at the flower festival, and I remember seeing this woman and like, gosh, she looks familiar. But then I was just enjoying, and it turns out Paula Abdul was there. So, some of you born in the 80s or 70s will be familiar with her. But it's fun to see when people are called to these different environments and called to spirituality and called to uplifting communities. And yeah, I don't know. I have so many notes and different things to share. I'll pause for a second for you, Hannah.
Yeah, I'm thinking about like the energy, how can I say it amplifies, right? When there's a group of people and everyone is there for spirituality. And when you talk about Radhanath Swami, that's a monk who's dedicated his whole life to spirituality. And and it's incredible, like you say, what a person like that is able to do in the world, the good that he is able to make happen. And also, like I remember from other teachers we've visited in India, these spiritual leaders, they do everything for free. Like if you ask, or we ask them sometimes to join us, or come to our podcast or something like that, they kind of they don't want to say no. And there's nothing in it, so to say, for them other than
Mhm.
that is part of their spiritual practice, is to be in the world and contribute to the world.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean we've had Sadhvi Ji from Rishikesh, who's joined our community, and of course Radhanath Swami will be joining our Bhakti Yoga conference. A few details I can confirm for the community. So for those well, in person or virtually in Zoom, is that the official event with Radhanath Swami and my academic advisor, Professor Clooney, is going to be Friday, April the 11th at 10 a.m. Eastern for 2 hours from 10 a.m. till noon Eastern. And if anybody's in the Boston area, please come. You're absolutely welcome to be here. It's free. And the cool part of that, because I shared in previous conversations here, because there's so many other people that we'd love to share with you that just great resources from the world of Bhakti Yoga. We're gonna have many other speakers, and it's gonna be virtual, and so basically the whole month of March. So we'll be sharing more about this with the Happy Jack Yoga community. Um, and if you're whether you're a member or not, you'll have the opportunity to join in on these live lectures. And so there were many of them, like more than 20 different lectures through the month of March, just about every day, and engaging and finding, what are ways that we can take this ancient Vedic wisdom and apply it in our lives, because there's just so many ways they can help. Here's an example. This story I heard recently. Let's say, Hanna, when you were 5 years old, or anybody listening, let's say when you were 5 years old, you really wanted a dime, like 10 cents. You wanted a dime. And when you got that dime, that your parents gave you that money, it made you happy. But so kind of this idea analogy is that, well, getting that money, you know, obviously this is kind of obvious for us, but we're not still happy 40 something years later because we got that dime. It doesn't work that way.
The
So
dime
this,
went to the candy shop.
right, it went to the can. Yeah, so we had a moment of bliss when we bought something. And but yet somehow in this world, in this society, we think that getting what we want, getting what I want will make me happy. But it's not that. That's not what makes me happy, right? So yeah, you get the money, you're blissful for a moment, and the reason you're happy for that moment is because you is not because you got what you want. It's because in that moment you don't want anything else. You're satisfied. You don't want anything else. And so when we have this joy, this release, this happiness, it's not because we got what we want. It's because we're no longer wanting. And so for a moment that we have this great happiness of not wanting anything. And so this is like kind of one of the teachings of yoga, right? And this is why the Bhakti yogis, one of their slogans is simple living and high thinking, right? We got authors on this call who wrote Simplicity Secret. Plug, go get that book, highly recommend it. Um, and it doesn't mean that we can't have a nice home and this and that, but we to understand that getting the home or getting the relationship or getting the car or getting the yoga certification or whatever, they can be good things, but it's the what gives us the ultimate kind of ease and peace is no longer wanting. And one of the things we talked about, this past few weeks in India, there's different stages, there's different paths of yoga. So if we look at the Bhagavad Gita, it teaches it. It's really a comparison of various different paths. There's karma yoga, jnana yoga, and bhakti yoga. Now there's another text that comes after that called the Srimad Bhagavatam or the Bhagavata Purana, which Sarah and George are reading right now, and I love to read. That's so the Bhagavad Gita compares the three different primary paths of yoga. This next text, it takes what's considered the highest yoga, bhakti yoga, and really runs with that. But let's just talk about Bhagavad Gita for a second. So in karma yoga, right, it's about enjoying. It's about, doing things and, living a pious life. So being a good person, but doing things in exchange, this karmic exchange, for enjoyment. And if I look at my life, I can see that I did that for the first 29 years in some not so healthy ways and maybe some healthy ways too, but kind of seeking this enjoyment, taking action, trying to enjoy the world. And that's the view of a karmi or a practitioner of karma yoga. But then if we think about then the next step is jnana yoga. And so they understand that okay, like this kind of idea I was talking about, the dime and happiness, they understand that it's kind of all an illusion, right? And there's, these attachments we have for things are ultimately only causing suffering for us. So this next path of yoga called Jnana yoga is where the yogi starts to renounce and simplify and is kind of like seeking a oneness, and I can see that in my life, kind of maybe starting at 29 for the my 30s, really like kind of renouncing and stepping away and simplifying and walking away from things. But then this third path is bhakti yoga. And so it's really a synthesis of the others. And this is where it's about love. It's about service. It's about devotion. It's about community and connection. And so that's what I can see for myself in these past 5 years. And so it doesn't always happen this way, but it is kind of a natural evolution. I can see where I went from karma yoga, kind of give and take, conditional, do good to receive good, enjoy life. And then I went on this renunciation path, and kind of like left it, one way ticket to India, kind of step away from it all. But now kind of the synthesis, bringing it all together, what really matters is this practice of bhakti. And that's why we're excited to host this conference and hear from different practitioners of this field on how we can apply it. We're going to hear from moms, we're going to hear from parents, we're going to hear from scholars, from thought leaders, monks, young people, older people, so that we get different perspectives, musicians, academics, people who've never been to college ever, but everybody has that right heart and incentive to want to serve and help.
I love that. And what I would say, like, in addition to that, two things. First, in your story, I feel like I remember very, very early on when I got to know you, I thought that you have kind of the Krishna energy of
Mm.
a joyful, um, you play music, I don't know, I just always had that hunch about you.
Hmm.
But at the time, that did not really mean anything or resonate with you. But But what I also think about your story is that, yeah, you can divide it up into those kind of different yogic paths, and that's probably accurate. But through all of that, there seems to have been this thread that is kind of seeking for connection, which I think love is, which Bhakti Yoga is all about, creating a connection between the what we think is bigger than ourselves, what upholds the universe, what the good forces of the universe, if we were to define it like in non-yogic words, maybe. And the other thing that I love about what your story with the dime and the kind of analogy of wanting is really beautiful because I don't know if I've shared this on the podcast, but I have a friend who, and I feel like I have a friend who has been married for, um, I guess, 20 years soon. And she had a baby around the same time as me. And then she had many babies and she is still married to her husband. And she once said to me that her marriage became incredibly beautiful and she became happy the day when she realized that she doesn't want or need to change anything about her husband.
Mm.
So her wanting went away and made a space and a field for her to live what I think sounds like a really beautiful life, right? Raising her family. And that means that the wanting, like holding our own wanting, sometimes when we really want something, we could ask ourselves, what is it really that I'm wanting? What is it really I'm seeking in this
Mhm.
relationship? Right? What is it really that I'm like, what's underneath this drive of me wanting it so badly? Sometimes we get really obsessed, right? Jack, you're really good at being obsessed about something. When you decide to go for something, you want it with everything that you are. And there's no 9 to 5, it's 24/7, right? You're very
Mhm.
dedicated. You want it so much that it fills your whole world, and then you create that project and you learn from it, and then a new project comes at time, at the, whenever is the time is complete, and you'll move on to your next thing. So how would you see for yourself the not wanting, and what is it you have wanted, and what might you be wanting now, and what do
Mhm.
you think is beyond the wanting, like if there was layers of wanting of self?
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, one of the things that the Shastra, the texts teach us in one way is to relinquish desires, to not have a desire and attachment for things. But the one
Pause
desire,
before
yeah.
you say, remember, is so when we let go of the desire, that means we're no longer wanting. So that is in a way the key to liberation. Like my friend, when she no longer wanted to create conflict in herself and in her marriage, she was no longer wanting a certain outcome, so she let go of that. It just kind of paradigm shifts everything, so that
Mhm.
makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah,
Like
exactly.
that's how you do it, because sometimes the texts are like really philosophical and high flying, but how to actually do it might be a conversation of like, how do we do it?
Mm. I think one of the most the answer, I mean, the answer to that, I look to the texts, right? And one thing I'll just say, sometimes people ask me like, well, how do we explain bhakti yoga? Or how do you explain this tradition that you guys are on or you're kind of into? And so in one way, I mean, the first thing I would say is that this tradition is derived from ancient texts. So this is not about like what do I think or what do I feel? And not that it's not okay to have our own thoughts and feelings, but we also try to ground what we're sharing in what these texts have been teaching and passing on for thousands of years. So the tradition comes from the ancient texts. You want to say
Yes.
something?
I just wanted to say it, yes. And so how do we implement it? Do we live the teaching is what I was highlighting
Yeah.
with the wanting.
Yeah, yeah, I'll get there. I just want, I guess, just as a side note, kind of say how we might explain it.
Yeah.
So kind of first, it comes from the ancient text, and second, so this is the understanding of the Bhakti yogi, and I'm not here to push this agenda or this idea on anybody else because hey, we got beautiful souls from different traditions right here live in Zoom with us. But the Bhakti yogi would under have an understanding that God or divinity or this higher power, it manifests in three ways. And so the first way is called this Brahman realization, and that's the idea that God is everywhere. And I think, there's definitely a lot of spiritual seekers that can buy into that or connect with that. That yeah, like God is everywhere. I see God in nature. I see God in community. I see it in relationships. And so that's kind of this one uh, absolute truth. But that's not where it stops. So that's where an Advaita Vedanta would stop. Is that's it. God is everywhere. Period. Now, um, but then we also have this understanding that God is within me. God was within my heart and the heart of every living being. And so, maybe we've had that feeling of kind of whether it's like intuition or just this feeling of like divinity within ourselves and seeing the spark of divinity in others. So that's this other understanding that the bhakti yogi would have, and that's called the Paramatma or the super soul. But then there's this third way, and this third way is that God is a person. And so that, different traditions could connect with that as well. And so, but of course, when God, from the Bhakti tradition, when God appears as a person, and he has at different times, Jesus, Buddha, Krishna, Chaitanya, different times avatars have descended who are believed to be incarnations of divinity. Um, our perspective would be that when they appear, it's not here to judge or to condemn or anything like that, but really only interested in expressing love with us. And so, yeah, I guess without getting into too much detail, just this idea that, first, God or divinity is everywhere. Second, it's within me. And third, it's also a person that we can have a relationship. We might pray. We might pray, through prayer or, reveal our heart and to a person. So I guess I just wanted to kind of put that as a side note that that's kind of the framework for bhakti. But you said, well, what does it look like? How do we live it? So, I mean, we just look to the texts. If we look to the text that Sarah and George are engaging now, which is a very complex text, but if we can extract some of the key teachings from there, it teaches us like the importance of association and the people that we spend time with. And people are sharing it in different ways, right? Tony Robbins says proximity is power. Tony says the five people you spend the most time with is who you become, right? And so that's his way of, accurately communicating this idea. And the yogis feel the same way, right? And so I've noticed that certain people there's just the and of course as bhakti yogis we don't want to judge or criticize others, but sometimes we might interact with somebody who's not really on a spiritual path or not really on a this path of evolution and growth, and notice that interactions kind of pull us down. It kind of just a little bit draining, a little bit and in others it's like so nourishing. And so again back to India, when I'm there and I'm with these monks, some of them are monks, but some of them are just like us. Some of them are householders, grihastas, who are living in the world, and just the nature and the quality of conversation, like I mean, one of the great teachings from the text, the Srimad Bhagavatam, there's this story of this king, King Parikshit, who is he has 7 days to live. I won't get into the whole details of the story. And so he asked this question: what is the duty? What is the dharma? What is the purpose of somebody who is about to die? And that might sound like grim or negative but let's be honest, that's me. That's you. That's all of us. Might not be 7 days, might not be 7 years, but it's coming. It's coming for all of us. I mean, again, this funny analogy, but there's a time bomb strapped to all of our bodies. We don't know when but at some point it's going to go off and this body expires. And so, of course, we can ask questions like, well, if I knew that tomorrow is the day, what would I do differently today? Would I make some calls? Would I say some I'm sorry's? Would I say some thank yous? Would I say some please forgive me's? If we live, this is the idea. This is why the yogis aren't afraid to talk about death and to, accept the fact that it is coming, because then we can live very purposefully and not put things off, right? It's like if we only had a day and we want to like reveal our hearts to a certain person, well, let's do that today. Even if we got another 50 years, let's speak our truth. And and I find that when I'm sitting down and I'm having meals at the ashram in India, these are the kind of conversations that I find being had, and it's so nourishing and inspiring. And it's a reminder. It's kind of like these are just teachings from the texts, but we're sitting and thinking, well, how does this apply to us? What could we do today? How could we and then things like, well, let's bring the Happy Jack Yoga community to India. Let's organize a retreat so we can all have this experience and we can learn from these monks. But then what we can do with our community, where we do on online satsang, where we break out Zoom, instead of a Zoom breakout, it's an in-person breakout with a partner, with a small group, and let's reflect on this. Well, how can we apply this in our lives? And that's the kind of vacation or holiday that really nourishes us, and we come back like so full. Like even though I'm jet lagged and I'm probably not like the most clear thought today on the podcast, my heart is just like bursting, and I'm just like ready for this semester. I'm ready for life. And that's really how we want our students to come back from India from, with just their hearts so full, even as we step back into our responsibilities and everything else we have to do. And but then beyond that, it's like, let's keep doing this. How do we keep doing this? And even though like we could, what could be simplest would be for me to just move back to small town Canada and live a real simple life and reduce my expenses down to practically nothing, and not have to go out and not have to do so much. But as you said, Hanna, there's something about this seeking for connection and seeking for meaningful relationships, and uh, and that's what I feel called to do, and it means I'll be busier and have more things to do. But it's kind of like when we have these experiences and they touch our heart. You mentioned about music. Well, the course one of my courses this semester is it's called Leading Music in Ritual, and we had the first class yesterday. And it's amazing. I mean, we're like singing, and we're all gonna have chances to like lead. I'll be able to lead kirtan and lead, different mantras, and we all people from different traditions, Muslim, Christian, yoga, all different traditions to come in and talk about leading music and ritual. And it's something that I want to bring more into my life. And so now there's this class where I'm gonna again have the accountability to show up every week and practice it. I don't know how the heck I ended up where I am right now. I don't know where my train of thought is, but so I'm going to pause for a second.
No, that's a really good train of thought. And I would want to kind of say that it's you were mentioning about the conversations and the body being a time bomb. And I was listening to a lecture where they defined Ayurveda as the science of life and yoga as the science of death. Because in yoga, we go into Shavasana, which is the corpse pose, and it's about death. It's not about the physical time bomb death, but it's the small self, maybe. Like there's these cycles in our lives where we are called to maybe parts of us become too small for us and we need to evolve. And then we look to scripture and tradition for guidance in that process. And so I think it's fascinating that in yoga we can contemplate on the the fact that life is really temporary and that we can anchor into coming back to the wanting. I really love that analogy. If we hold our own wanting and we look at our lives, where and what experiences do we have where the wanting goes away? And I'm sure that in our practice, many of us can find that release from the daily grind and the mind and the ego, where we maybe we find silence in meditation, maybe someone finds it in nature, maybe you found it at the flower festival, Jack, where you were not wanting anything, and that changes you, doesn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, it's true. And there's something about when we dedicate our lives, whether it's our own personal practice or for some of us yoga teachers here, we dedicate our lives to sharing it also. It brings so much meaning. There's some of you, Hanna, you were saying yesterday that the community's kind of caught wind that we're doing a summer retreat in West Virginia, which we are in June, and we'll be sharing the details soon. During that retreat, everybody's going to get a copy of the Bhagavad Gita because we're engaging that text. And it's by this author named Srila Prabhupada, who really brought Bhakti yoga to the West. And I say all of that because he said one time, he was giving a lecture, and he said the world has so many problems. I mean, there's so many challenges and so much conflict. There's so many challenges in the world. And so some people do, and we can dedicate our life to a particular problem, climate crisis, equality, um, politics, all of these different, like it's endless, right? Peace instead of war, all of these are different problems. So we can dedicate our entire life to improving or resolving a problem. But not to be negative, but he kind of said, but even if we do, it's we usually don't solve these major life, global problems. There's so many injustices, and so what he's teaching, is that if we can bring this Atmagyana, which is Sanskrit for the knowledge of the soul. If we can bring this wisdom, if we can bring these teachings to people, if we can educate people that we're more than just this physical body, but we're a pure spirit soul. And when we can, help people realize what's most important, you know, that's that's what the yogis and the sages and these great teachers believe. I mean, that's how we're actually going to solve these big global crises, right? It's not, and this is not a criticism to those who are doing this like important social justice work. We all have a different path. We all have a different calling. But the Bhakti yogis perspective is that let's focus, the purpose of human life is to inquire about the absolute truth. So if we can dedicate ourselves and prioritize this inquiry into the absolute truth and understand what that is, and realize it for ourselves and embody it, maybe even just for a moment. Like yesterday you saw something in my eyes, I maybe today it's not there, but like for some moments we may realize it, and then share that with others. And I guess I'm at this stage now, middle age, and found something that lights me up and speaks to my soul and warms my heart. And and it fits so well with the work that we already do as yoga teachers and with this yoga school. And what I love about Radhanath Swami really aligns with us is that we're not coming here saying this is the best way, this is the only way. There's nothing like that. Every path has beautiful qualities. Every tradition has beautiful, aspects. But rather, we're bringing teachings from this particular tradition, and we're sharing it, and we're engaging it, and we're going to invite our students, like when they come to India or when they come to West Virginia, like let's engage these ideas, and you don't have to accept them all. We don't have to implement them all, but let's kind of like engage in the inquiry. And then, something that resonates and something that may have a positive impact, well, let's keep doing that. And that seems to be the path of the seeker, and it's which brought us here.
Yeah, and I'd like to think that this type of living will positively contribute to the different crisis situations that humanity is facing.
Yeah,
The fact that we are in integrity and invested in doing the right thing will then also include social justice and participating in the change that needs to happen.
exactly. Yeah. And so this is, um, yeah, again, I don't know, sometimes I just feel at a loss for words, but it's beautiful to be dedicating our lives to something that really feels right. Again, I guess coming back to when I studied engineering to get a good paycheck, or to make my dad proud. Not that engineering is inherently wrong. It's a great path for the right person. But it's like when we can really align what our calling is and what our heart is, and dedicate the path to that, it's so nourishing, it's so fulfilling. And yeah, we got lots of ideas of different retreats and different ways to bring this into the community, and to share this with others. And again, that's why I love that, so many of the yogis here are, we have a little, on Sundays we have a mentorship program. It started out, I should just mention, we got this mentorship program. It's super accessible. It's $20 a month, and we meet every Sunday at 10 a.m. Eastern, for 45 minutes. Yeah, 45. And it started out as kind of like again, because I did a lot of work with Tony Robbins, it started more of a mentorship, as in like becoming a successful yoga teacher, so more of that like growing and impact.
And
But
coaching.
then coaching, yeah. But I guess then my path started, weird,
Derailing.
derailing and becoming very spiritual focused. And it's like, this is what I'm living. I'm living it in ashram now for the second year in Boston. It's what I'm living, breathing, sleeping, everything, studying, sharing, teaching is this spiritual practice. So it's really evolved into that. So now we're engaging these great ancient Vedic texts. And so it's beautiful to be able to meet and on a regular basis and engage in these conversations. And I mentioned it because I see some of the participants, Andrea, CC, Pam, uh, Rita, Sarah and George, many of you who are here who are part of that program, and just being able to take our spiritual life, take our seeking seriously, and engage in conversation. And yeah, I'm so lit up. I guess if anything, the only problem is I got like so many ideas, and now it's about, okay, well, which ones are we going to prioritize? Which are we going to do first? But first up is the Bhakti Yoga Conference in the whole month of March. So stay tuned for that. And then in April, we're bringing Radhanath Swami here to Harvard. And then June summer retreat, and then in November India, and we got lots of exciting ideas for the following year as well. But this
Can
is
can you
this is it.
clarify the April 11th if someone cannot join you in
Mhm.
person? Is it going to be live or is it going to be a recording? Should people be available at that time exactly on April 11th?
Yeah, yeah. We're gonna live stream it on Zoom, and so everybody's gonna be able to join and ask questions of the speakers. So please do join if you're able. But it will, of course, we'll record it as well for those who can't join at that particular time. Um, but actually, what I will say is that immediately after this podcast, I'm jumping right into therapy. I'm meeting with my therapist. It's because again, it comes down to meaningful connection and meaningful conversations. And I'm not broken. And I mean, you know better than me, Hannah. You know that therapy serves many different purposes. And I've been working with a therapist now for a year and a half, and I haven't had any crises or trauma. Knock on wood, I'm sure, tragedy and all of that's coming around the corner for all of us. But like, it's I haven't had to solve some big problem, but it's about having a safe space to be able to share my heart and engage in conversation. And I know that's what you love to do as well.
Yeah, that's the thing I love the most in the whole entire universe. And it's true you haven't had a crisis, but you've had life transitions. And sometimes when we're going through transitions in life, when changes happen, it's great to have a place where you can go and process and make really good choices. And and also what I'm thinking for you right now, Jack, you're coming back from India. It's a good time to, come back and implement and integrate
Mhm.
what happened and what you learned and how you, because sometimes it's such a different reality that when we come back home, it's a really good idea to see how we can integrate all the things as you navigate. There's the jet lag, but then there's also, I think, energetically and spiritually, maybe things that you can process with your therapist.
Yeah. Oh my God, absolutely. I'm really looking forward to it, and I've got work to be done. But I appreciate this conversation and everybody who's here live with us. Huge shout out to you. We will just finish a couple of minutes early just so I can run to the restroom. Too much information, run to the bathroom before we kick off on the hour with therapy. But we're back here again next week. No jet lag, so hopefully even more insights, more clarity. And I only got to a fraction of the things I would have loved to share. So lots of things still to reveal, overcoming sun calls and etc. But thank you for being here. Thank you, Hanna, holding down the fort these past couple of weeks. And 2025, it's just January. This is going to be the best year ever.
I
I
like
feel
that.
it. It is. It absolutely is. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. I'm so excited and so happy. So, friends, make it an amazing rest of the day. And we'll see you again very soon. Namaste.
Namaste.